Hello, am I audible? Like, is the screen visible? Can anyone say something? Just waiting for Shubham to join. Um, am I audible?
या
बहुत ज़्यादा हवा का आवाज़ आ रहा है क्या? आई मीन फैन वगैरह का? हाँ, बताना शुभम. चलो तो लेट्स स्टार्ट. थोड़ा आवाज़ कम है. तो today we are going to see about the introduction for data structures. Um, Let me just cover it superficially so that okay, someone is trying to join. Let me edit. So this is the introduction. In the introduction, we actually have. Let me. Okay. So yeah, this open board. Just to note it. So here we have in the introduction what are variables. We are going to see what are data types, and just after that we are going to see what are data structures. So after studying about what kind of data structures and the classification of data structures, we are going to see what are abstract data types which we can create as a programmer. Then we'll see what is an algorithm. Then we'll see why the analysis of algorithms are important. Then we'll see the goal of analyzing algorithms. So actually, what is an algorithm? Algorithm is a set of instructions which we give to the machine in order to do some task, right? So in order to analyze algorithm, why do we need to analyze algorithm in the first place? In order to optimize. Okay, someone is trying to join. Okay. Okay, let me start from the beginning then. So we were seeing about what is the need of analyzing an algorithm. An algorithm is a set of instructions which you know a computer is asked to do perform. Like we can do something like add. Add is an algorithm which takes two numbers a and b, and what does it do? This is just pseudocode. It is not any. I'm not writing C++ specific code. Let's say we are doing some variable and we are substituting it with a plus b, and we are returning it. So what kind of optimization we can do in this algorithm? Although this is a very simple algorithm, we need to analyze the algorithm, the number of steps, the number of variables which are used in the algorithm. Here two variables are used. So there is some amount of space that is being used by the machine which you are programming in. There is a certain amount of time which the processor takes to evaluate this sum. So there are two major things we have to look onto when we are going to analyze the algorithm. One is space and the second is time. The second one is time. Time and space are very important. If you go into a very good company, um, they'll ask you to optimize all those very big legacy projects. If you make a web framework which is very time inefficient and space inefficient, it takes, like, if something could have been done inside a multinational company, inside in, like you said, there the numbers inside a very big company is very extraordinary. They have data, like Amazon might have data of shopping items for about, say, 10 TB, something which could have been stored in 10 TB, and some bad programmer stores it in say 80 TB. So that's really bad. We need to optimize the space. And if we do some kind of query that runs on the whole, what do you say, whole Amazon, let's say Amazon, if you try to access something and it comes in like 0.25 second, and something comes in like 2 second, which is better? Obviously this is better, so we need to optimize in order to get lesser time complexities. So we'll study this in a more verbose way later in this part. I'm just covering up what are the topics right now. We covered variables, data types, data structures, abstract data types, what is an algorithm, analysis of algorithm, the goal and the analysis of algorithm, what is running time analysis. That is what I discussed right now. Time complexity. Time complexity is also known as the running time complexity. How do you compare algorithms? If there are two algorithms, how do you compare them? We are going to see that. What is the rate of growth? Since we are talking about time complexity, it must be some function, right? The function is of time. Let's say n is time over here, so we have a function of time, so we'll have some kind of rate of growth in these functions, right? They can be of polynomial type, n square. They can be of linear type. They can be of logarithmic type. They can be of constant type. There are many types of, rate of growth. They can be exponential types. Many. I mean, literally many. Okay, so we covered this, and there are types of analysis. We are going to do that, and all of this is very a little math heavy. We need to also see what is master theorem and all of that, which is not in our syllabus. But if you go into a very good uh, multinational company, they will ask you all these kind of things in a interview. Okay, someone is trying to join. Am I audible? I mean, I didn't get a response from anyone. Are you guys there, right?
Mm,
समझ में आ रहा है क्या?
yeah.
Okay, okay. I'll continue.
हाँ भाई, continue.
Okay, so इसके after this we are going to see a lot of things. The introduction is pretty heavy, but let me cover this right now. We will not cover all of these things today only. It takes a little time. There are asymptotic notations. जैसे मैंने बताया टाइम कम्प्लेक्सिटी के बारे में, दे आर फंक्शंस ऑफ टाइम, उसके बारे में एसिम्प्टोटिक नोटेशंस के बारे में बात करेंगे. सिंस लेट्स सी एन स्क्वायर का ग्राफ कुछ ऐसा होता है. ये जैसे जैसे डेटा ये तो टाइम है, चलो ये टाइम है, ये है साइज डेटा. डेटा के साथ साथ along with data, how the time complexity or the nature of the algorithm increases asymptotically. We need to check that. Data of course positive ही होगा. अभी मत देखो, शायद गलत है. But still you get an idea of what is asymptotic analysis also. And after that we are going to see what are the certain kind of notions which are there in programming. Big O notation to define time complexity. Upper bound function we'll study all this. We'll not get into the technicalities of it right now. somebody wants to join. Okay, right. कहाँ था? यहाँ था. Okay. So, and after that, we are going to see asymptotic analysis, notations. Master theorem is pretty math heavy. Divide and conquer. These all are relatively high, high level topics. So we'll cover that later. After that, so let me just start with the chapter. So, since everybody, I am assuming everybody is new here, so I will go from the basics and start. So, like today morning, we discussed uh, what are variables. Variables are basically containers which can store data. So, what are variables? Let's see a practical example. Just like I asked you to create, like I showed you what is an add function. Add function had two something parameters, let's say a and b. What does this add function do? It creates one more variable that stores these two numbers which were inputted inside this function. I know function is a relatively uh, unknown term to you if you are new to programming, but still consider this as a math function. Just like you used to study f of x, let's say here f of, let's say here is f of sum, no, let's say just sum equals a plus b. That this is a black box, and this black box is named as a function add. All right, what does this sum do? A plus b. So what are these are variables. Okay, so let me read out the formal definition. This is a very good book, by the way. This is a book by Narasimha Karumanchi. It's like named Data Structures and Algorithms Made Easy. If you want to study from this, you can clear a lot of technical interviews if you can read this all by your own. It's a pretty good self-help book for data structures and algorithms. Okay, so we are done with variables. As you can see in this mathematical equation, we have how many variables? Can anyone say?
Two.
Variables. Great. Two variables. What kind of data can these two variables store? Any kind of data. Let's say 0, plus minus 1, plus minus 2, anything. All these numbers are integers. Okay, someone else wants to join. Okay. Okay, let's go back to where we are. So these two variables could have stored something, some value known as integers, some data set, type of a data set which is known as integers. This kind of data set, formally in programming languages, we call them as data types. We call this as basically integer if there are real numbers, something like 0.255, let's say 5.5. So all these numbers have decimal values in them, so they are floating point numbers. I don't know why they name this floating point. I mean, if they are floating between one number and the second number, one, two, maybe floating somewhere here. I don't know, like something. Okay, so real numbers. And there are some some things which like we studied in digital electronics. There can be only two. Uh, there can be a number system which has a radix 2, let's say, so it will have only two kind of inputs, 0 or 1. So formally we name this kind of data type in programming languages as boolean. So all these data types, I am not going specific to C++. This all these data types are relatively kind of same in all the programming languages. If in your career, if you want to switch from one language to the other, there's no very big problem. Um, a very good notion people say is, you don't learn if you learn a programming language first, you start with C or C++. I mean, it's my opinion, but if you don't start with or Java, or Java, because most of the code which we write inside these programming languages are hard coded. In Python, to do something, it's like very easy. I'll show you at the end of this class if it is possible, because all this introduction will take a lot of time, and if you guys are regular, I am willing to cover this whole subject. Oh, okay, let's just move ahead. Okay, I'm not selected this, sorry about that. So data types, like we discussed here, data types. Okay, so data types can be integers, they can be real numbers, they can be booleans, like we discussed. So integer, floating point, unit number. So this is formally known as boolean, which can only store two values, either true or false. We don't do 1 and 0 here, we do true and false. Although when you write some bool, let's say bool a equals 1, it will be considered as true in some programming languages, not in all. Okay, and then we have string. String is a relatively new thing which we are seeing right now. So string is a set of characters. So here we okay, someone's trying to join. Okay, so characters are a data type which can store some ASCII values, like say A, B, but only one value, one character. Let's say dollar. Let's say one. One is also a character. Can someone justify if one is a character or not? If it's inside these codes, it's a character. If we define something as char a equals, this is the variable name. I'll come to variable naming conventions, although we have already studied it in VHDL. That should give enough context for you to write some kind of variables. But there are some programming languages which follow some kind of, style to name variables. We'll come to that. We'll see on Google somehow, and we'll do that. So to assign value to this, we can do something like this and s. Let's say s we are assigning. We can do like this. So this is a character variable name which has a data type char, and variable name a which has a value capital S. Okay, we saw this. Okay, so after this we are going to study about the range of all these data types. So for the range I have to actually Google, but let's say I kind of know for this. Let's say computer memory is filled with zeros and ones. If we have a problem, we want to code it, it's very difficult to provide solution in terms of zeros and ones. To help programming languages, compilers provide with data types. For example, integer takes 2 bytes. Actually, actual value depends on compiler. Float takes 4 bytes. Okay, so let's just see these both two. So these 4 byte means 32 bits, and 32 bits means 2 power 32. So that data type could have stored numbers from minus 2 power 32 to plus 2 power 32 plus 1. Oh, sorry, minus 1. Okay, and similarly for 2 bytes, it should have been minus 2 power 16 to plus 2 power 16 minus 1. Okay, let's go ahead and classify data types. So data types are classified into two parts: primitive and user defined. Primitive, also very nicely named. System defined, very nicely named. You can understand the meaning from this as well. These kind of data types are already defined by the language creator, let's say. And user defined data types are the data types we as an individual programmers or intellectual whatever, we can define and use for our own. There's a lot of research going on in these data structures and everything, because everything right now depends on data, and we need efficient ways to store data, to communicate with data efficiently. We need to have good data types as well. There are a lot of data types which we are going to see right now, but then there are also advanced data types which this code does not cover. I would highly recommend you to watch it on YouTube sometime if you're free. It's very interesting. So system defined data types, like we discussed, integers may take up to 2 bytes or 4 bytes. It is compiler dependent. It depends on the compiler. Previously it used to take previously we used to have 16-bit processors actually. So now the technology has evolved, so we can have 64-bit. Like, you might have installed operating system on your system, so it might have said like you want to install 32-bit or 64-bit. The instruction set of your CPU depends, the kind of OS which you install depends on the kind of processor you have. Is if the processor can allow that amount of, okay, this is not relevant here, but still let's just see here. So 4 bytes, let if say 2 bytes, there are 16 bits. Total possible values are, this is, what is this, 2 power 16 minus 2 power 16, and this is, okay, 15. Okay, why is it 15? I know, maybe I'm wrong, sorry about that. Okay, minus 2 power 15 to 2 power 15 minus 1. And if there's 4 bytes, then the values take from here to here. The same is cases. So you don't actually need to know the boundaries of these data types. It's practically irrelevant. They don't ask these kind of questions in interviews. So user defined data types. So user defined data types is a good topic to discuss on. As we discover more data structures in this course, we are going to see more kind of user defined things, like linked list, you might have heard. So there's no like default thing, we created this. So in order to use the concept of linked list, we need to so called user define this data structure. And just like we user define this data structure, we are user defining a data type. Okay, so this, in C programming language, since we do not have classes, we have structure, that we use for user defined data types. So there's a new type, there's in data 1, data 2 of int type, float type, and char data. Okay, this is enough for the introduction to this. Then we come to data structures. Data structures is a very important topic. We all have discussed about it, since it's very important to store data and organize data, sort data. Like if you do let's do a live example. Let's see what kind of uh, thing does this thing use. Let's say we search HRITHIK Roshan. We searched this. So what did this do internally? Can you guys see? Okay, it's too zoomed out. Okay, so it's it organized all these results, and it is showing us that it has done all these organizing in this amount of time. If it wouldn't have done in lesser time, it would have been inefficient. So this is the practical use of data structures. Internally in the back end, there is some kind of logic. We use some kind of data structure to organize data in the web framework anywhere. Okay, so let's just get back. Okay, how do I hope everyone is okay with things. Okay, let me not. Okay, why is this so big? Okay, okay. So why is this so big? Oh God. Never mind. Let me just discuss it like this only. So there are linear data structures and non-linear data structures. So did we discuss this? Okay. So based on the discussion above, once we have data in variables, we need some kind of mechanism to manipulate data to solve problems. Yes, to solve problems. To solve problems, there comes solutions, and those solutions are data structures, which the humans created to solve those problems which were incurred in the process of exploring things. So data structures is a particular way of sorting and organizing data in computer so that it can be used efficiently. A data structure is a special format for organizing and storing data. General data structures include arrays. So what do we know about arrays? As we have studied in our first year, it is a contiguous memory block of elements which are stored in contiguous memory blocks. Files, linked lists, we'll study about it. Stacks, queues, trees, graphs, there are infinite number of data structures. I mean, not infinite, but still a lot of it. Depending upon the organization, we can classify the data structures in two types. There are linear data structures, and then there are non-linear data structures. Elements can which can be accessed in. I really need that whiteboard. Why did that cursor go so big? How do I make it small? Stupid cursor. Oh, damn it. Never mind. Okay, so the linear data structures were linked list, stacks, and queues. So the datas which are stored in these data structures can be accessed linearly. So let's look into a linked list. Let's see images. Okay, why did I go here? I should have gone for geeks. Never mind. So this is basically a linked list. This, if you can see, so this is a linear data structure. We can access here, we can come here, then we can go here. If we want to traverse, we are going to study about the dynamics of this data structures later on, but this looks something like linear. An array, let's see an array. Array data structure. This looks linear to you all, right? And let's look to a non-linear data structure. Let's look to a tree. Tree sounds fascinating. Tree is data structure. So this thing, does this thing look straight to you? It's all teda meda. It's not straight. Why will it look straight? And yes, this part looks straight though, but overall, as in data structure, it does not look straight. So just for a trailer, a tree is a data structure which has a node, and it has child elements to it. So this, you can consider this as mama, this is baby, there are two babies to this mama, and this baby is also in mama and it also has babies. This is the left child, this is the right child. So we'll study about all this later. I don't know why my cursor went that like that, but still. So, non-linear data structures are elements of this data structures are stored and accessed in a non-linear order. Trees and graphs. So, if you are very curious, I can show you graphs as well. Graphs. Although we don't have graphs in our, syllabus, but still, you know, all these Google Maps and stuff, all these are, you know, if let's see, maps, let's see, maps. If you want to go from like Delhi to Bombay, so there are so many possibilities that you can go. So the efficient way to traverse from Delhi to Bombay, using all these connections, you can optimize ways. There are so many path shortening algorithms like Dijkstra. There are so many algorithms. There are infinitely many. Let's just not, everyone has already used maps at some point in their life. So abstract data type, let's move on to the next topic, abstract data types. Abstract data types is nothing but it's just a fancy way to just say primitive data types. All primitive data types, int, float, some basic operations such as addition, default, no, not primitive data types, user defined